Hi, I'm Anne, and today I have the final block in the traditional quilt block series. And the final block is the Dutchman's puzzle. I've already put together the 9-inch and the 3-inch, which is super cute, challenging, but cute. And I'm going to sit down and sew up the 6-inch version. Stick around till the end. I'll be going over the quilt layout instructions briefly. You can get a link to that PDF in the description below, and that's what the next video will be. I'll be putting together the baby quilt. So let's get started. Okay, I've got my fabric all cut out and I've got my pattern printed out, and this is what I'm going to do with my layout on this block. There are a lot of ways you can do it, and I'll be showing some of those to you during this video. Page 2 this week is, like a lot of others, an FPP pattern. Also, I did on page 3 a simplified Dutchman's puzzle block. Yeah, so I'll hold this up for you while you take a peek at the cutting instructions. And so you can pause and get the information you need. But you can get this pattern in a link underneath the video in the description. Okay, so the first step is to draw lines diagonally on all 8 of these small squares. So let's do that. With lines drawn on the wrong side of our small squares, we're going to line these up on our large ones on opposite corners like this. And then I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to line my ruler up corner to corner the opposite direction, perpendicular. And I'm going to draw a line on the ends of these squares so that I can trim that off, and that'll get rid of just a little bit of the bulk for us, because these blocks are going to get bulky. All right. All right, and now I'm just going to pop a pin in these so they don't move around. And the measurements on these are oversized, so we do have wiggle room if they're not exactly perfect. I just like to double check that the lines more or less are going to come together in the center. So do that for both of your pieces. And now we're going to stitch on either side of the line we drew, 1/4 inch away. It's going to end up with 2 seams going down each of these units. And I've got my stitch length set at about a 1.8. And I'm going to go ahead and just chain piece these one after another. Okay, take these to the cutting table, and we're going to cut right on that line we drew. So cutting these apart right on that line. It's probably just as easily done with scissors, but I'm already here, so okay. So just set the seams, and I'm going to go ahead and press these away from the large square, or triangle as it is now. And I'm just going to throw these under my wood clappers over here. Just press all four like that. Okay, back to the machine with these. And now we're going to flip them around and take the other four squares with the lines drawn on the back. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to stitch a 1/4 inch away from our line on either side. Right, back to the cutting table where we're going to go ahead and slice on the lines again. Actually, I'll use my scissors. Okay, much easier. Okay, and we're going to press these the same way we did before, away from the goose. Away from the geese, away from the geese. I'll just be throwing these under the clappers as I go. All right. So now we're going to trim all these down. And for the 6-inch block that we're making, we need the flying geese units to be 3.5 inches by 2 inches. So that's how I'm going to trim. So 3.5 by 2. You can see my 1 3/4 inch. I've got that lined up at the point on my flying geese. And down here, 1/4 inch away from that is the 2-inch line. So I know that if I cut a 2-inch flying geese unit out of this, that I will have 1/4 inch down here for my seam allowance. And that all looks good. Gosh, I got some of those fancy titanium blades. Oh my goodness, what a game changer. So much better. So while I trim up these units, I just wanted to share with you a little bit about the Dutchman's puzzle block. We think this originated back in the late 1800s, and the first published version of a pattern for this block was put out in the 1890s. The thing about this block, like some of the others we've done, is the number of looks you can achieve by varying your color placement within the block. So let me just put a little montage up on the screen of the variations you can get. All right, let's assemble this. So I kind of like, at least for the fabrics I chose, I like the darker fabric being on the inside because I kind of like the way that pinwheel effect is accentuated, I guess, by the darker fabric. So I'm going to then we need to sew together each of these quadrants with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, scant 1/4 inch that is. We want to run our seam right through that intersection. Okay, back over to the iron. And I'm going to go ahead and measure each of these once I get them pressed this time. On this step, we can just press whichever direction. I mean, you can press open, obviously, too, but I guess I'm just going to press to the outside triangle for no reason. To be consistent, I guess. We don't have to match any seams up on the next step, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to trim each one of these as needed, making sure that I have a 1/4 inch to the outside of all of my points. That one looks good. Okay. So this is how those are going to go together, and I'll just sew together each row first. Couldn't really see the intersections on those because of the way I pressed, so I'm just hoping I did okay. Yeah, those look great. Okay, back to the iron. And so these, we just want to make sure we press opposite directions from one row to the other. And this is going to be the path of least resistance, actually, to press toward the long flat side. So theoretically, if we do that on both of these, they should be pressing in opposite directions. And yes, they are. Awesome. Give this a quick measure. Good. Close enough. Okay. This is how we want this to go together. And I'm just going to locate my points by sticking a pin through. Well, actually, we'll stick it through like this. Locate that intersection and then locate the other one. poke it right through at that point. Okay. Now, I like to pin the ends. Then I'll pin on either side of this, and besides putting that pin through where our points are, we can nest our seams also. So I also like to pin the other sides, even though I'm not stitching across those sides. It's just a good way to end up with a square block to know that these corners are also lined up, rather than having them kind of skewed. And so I can see where the intersection is on this side. And theoretically, if I can just head for that and stitch my seam right over it, because we aligned all those points when we pinned to begin with, that should work out, but we're going to see. I can live with that. I'm going to remove the threads from the seam underneath that one we just sewed, because I've got this seam going up and that seam going down, and what I want to do is I want to put it in a clock. I want to put it in a spiral so that basically we get a nice little pinwheel in the center as well. And that way we're distributing the bulk of our seams around all the sides rather than shoving them to one side. And when you remove that seam, you had just sewn over the top of it, so that stitch over the top of it is going to keep it intact. So you just want to rip up to the seam that's sewed over the top of it, but not beyond it. That's not bad. Yeah, for bulk. Just going to straighten these edges up a little bit. Beautiful. I'm going to go ahead and add the sashing. This is for the baby quilt. I'm doing that one. And then 2 of these. So first I'm going to attach my cornerstone to my sashing. Alright, so this we press away from the cornerstone or toward the sashing. And then attach the sashing to the other side. And so I'm going to go ahead and put a couple pins in this because first of all I want it to line up at the edges nicely, but also I'm going to flip it over and stitch it from this side so I can make sure that I'm running over those intersections, or at least do my best. Okay. Sure didn't chop off any points there. That looks good. I'm going to press toward the sashing again, just like the other side. And now I can make these nest. All right, we're done sewing up the 12 blocks, and the next video I'll be putting together this baby quilt. You can get the layout instructions in the description below, and this is what we're going to make. It's going to have a 1.5-inch border around the very outside here, probably in your background fabric, and then a 4-inch border all the way around the outside of that. So this PDF will give you cutting instructions and fabric requirements for the cornerstone sashings and the 2 borders. So download that below, and thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.